When the world becomes a lawless monster zone, it's always nice to have a little hero on your side. Today, on the Toku Professor, we discuss the history of the ugly yet adorable Kaiju Pigmon. But beware, it isn't always pretty. Good to see you today, class! Today our subject is Pygmon, one of the few friendly kaiju in the Ultra series or any series, alongside a handful of others like Kanegon, Booska, or Minilla. Among these peaceable pals, Pygmon has achieved a particular notoriety, due to his tendency, especially early on, to get himself sadly killed. But I'm spoiling everything already. Let's start at the very beginning. It's a very good place to start. And the beginning in this case is not on the date of Pygmon's debut in September of 1966, but rather 161 days before that, on March 27th of that same year, when the monster that would become Pygmon first appeared on Japanese television sets. The 13th episode of Ultra Q, Garadama, featured a kaiju named Garamon that had absolutely nothing in common with Pygmon. Nothing at all. Hopefully you're catching my sarcasm. Aside from the two kaiju looking exactly the same, their in-universe origin story may also be linked. We'll touch on that later, but in the meantime, here's a brief history of Garamon. Garamon was a giant-sized mechanical monster, the first robotic kaiju in the Ultra series, who was sent by the cicada humans in a meteorite to invade the Earth. He was controlled through radio waves. Wait. Why do I feel like I've talked about a kaiju similar to this before? Anyway, he was controlled through radio waves emitted from a smaller meteorite, but his advance was stopped when scientists cut off the meteorite's signal. In episode 16 of Ultra Q, the stone was stolen by a cicada human, and even more Garamons were sent to Earth and attacked Tokyo, wrecking it badly. But when the meteorite was recovered, they were defeated as well. And that's the scoop on Garamon. Certainly not quite the friendly monster we're looking for, so let's move on to Pygmon. Both screenplays featuring Garamon were written by Tetsuo Kinjo, who would be brought back that same year as the head writer of Ultraman. He wrote both episodes featuring Pygmon, with some assistance from Shozo Yuhara on the Lawless Monster Zone. To these two we probably owe almost everything about Pygmon's personality and behavior. However, the decision to reuse the Garamon suit was probably not theirs. Back then, Tsuburaya's writers didn't usually include any specific descriptions of the kaiju in the scripts they wrote. All the details like the name, etc. would be worked out in staff meetings. The Lawless Monster Zone, Pygmon's debut episode, featured way more monsters than any preceding Ultraman episode, so it makes sense that in order to deal with this, Tsuburaya would choose to reuse suits from Ultra Q to cut costs. Chandlar, who debuted in the same episode, was just a loosely disguised Pegila. Pygmon was hardly disguised at all, aside from maybe some small color differences, but Garamon appeared in black and white, so no one could have spotted most of them. As for the sounds Pygmon made in his debut, they were reused from the giant lizard that appeared in King Kong vs. Godzilla. Multiple sources affirm his name is a shortened version of Pygmy Monster, but chances are high it's supposed to make you think of Garamon as well. Time to get into his role in Episode 8 of Ultraman. Pygmon was discovered by the SSSP during their quest to locate several missing scientists on Tatara Island. Moments after being found, he dropped a handkerchief and ran away through the jungle. Arashi believed the monster was trying to lead them to a survivor, though his comrades weren't sure. Nonetheless, they decided to hit him with a balloon bomb so they could go after Pygmon and see where he went. Sure enough, Pygmon led them to the only surviving scientist, who reported that the monster had saved his life by bringing him food and water. Suddenly, Red King attacked, and Pygmon rushed off to distract the giant monster. Yeah, bad idea. The heroic little kaiju was killed by an avalanche of rocks. But things would somehow manage to get even more tragic. Let's fast forward to March 26th of the following year, the date of the airing of the highest-rated Ultraman episode of all, and one of my personal favorites, The Little Hero. Who do you think that little hero was? Maybe Captain Obvious has an idea? It's Pygmon, of course! Duh! For this appearance, Pygmon was given a bit of a makeover. He became a darker red, and the pattern of his spikes changed. His voice changed too. Instead of sounding like the giant lizard, Pygmon started squealing like baby Sanda from Toho's War of the Gargantuas. Probably because he had a lot more to say this time around. In this episode, the evil and powerful monster chief, Geronimon, began reviving dead kaiju in order to get revenge on Ultraman and the Science Patrol for killing his subjects in the past. Not realizing that Pygmon was a friend to humanity, the small red monster was among the first creatures Geronimon brought back. Pygmon was discovered in a department store and tried to alert the SSSP about Geronimon's evil scheme to revive 60 monsters. But no one could understand him, until a professor who specialized in interpreting the language of dolphins was able to decipher Pygmon's message. Pygmon led the Science Patrol to Mount Oiwayama, where Dorako and Telesodon were battling. The Science Patrol battled the monsters, but Ide was convinced their efforts were useless because Ultraman was always the one who ended up saving the day. As a result, he foolishly didn't fight back when Dorako approached, and Pygmon ended up sacrificing himself to save Ide's life. That's right, the writers killed Pygmon again! What could be more heartrending than that? At the end of the episode, at least the Science Patrol gave Pygmon a moment of silence this time, and made him an honorary member of the SSSP. But Pygmon was dead, and for the next 26 years, Pygmon himself would make no new appearances in any official Ultraman shows, although a remarkably similar-looking robot named Pigu appeared in the Ultraman anime. But then, something happened in 1993. The first Power Rangers entry debuted on Fox Kids. Okay, yes, that happened, but that's off topic. In 1993, Ultraman the Ultimate Hero was released on home video in Japan. In the series, many monsters from the first Ultraman were redesigned and brought back. And look who was among them! Once more appearing alongside Chandlar and Red King, this new powered Pygmon was actually able to survive an episode without being crushed. Powered Pygmon also seems to have been the first kaiju ever to be played by a woman. He didn't really do much of anything aside from befriending substranded humans and squeaking a few times, but Pygmon had officially made a comeback. But this was Powered Pygmon, though. Was regular old Pygmon still dead? Well, probably, but that didn't mean Tsuburaya couldn't introduce us to a new Pygmon. The Ultraman Max series was created as a reaction against the Dark Ultraman Nexus show, and was the first show in a long time to bring back older monsters, aside from the Baltans and Cosmos, despite being in an alternate continuity from the Showa series. Aside from King, the first kaiju to return were none other than our buddy Pygmon and his perpetual enemy Red King. For this appearance, Pygmon was given another new design, and a new squeaky voice too, as well as an in-universe origin story. In Ultraman Max, the Pygmon species were speculated to be organic computers sent by aliens to help create ancient civilization. This is a highly interesting theory, considering Pygmon's similarity to another alien creation, Garamon. Perhaps the cicada humans sent Pygmon too. But we still have a lot of history to cover in a short amount of time, so let's move on. Pygmon appeared in 3 episodes of Max. In the 2-part episodes 5 and 6, Pygmon was discovered on the drifting island Subject Phantom and befriended Kaido. 2 men, eager to unravel the mysteries of ancient civilization, captured the red monster, but this indirectly resulted in a Pygmon statue that was sealing Red King underground being destroyed. Red King tried to kill Pygmon, but was defeated after 2 fights with Ultraman Max. After the first fight, Pygmon had tended to Kaido, much like the Pygmon in the Lawless Monster Zone. When Dash left the island, Pygmon transformed into a statue, and the island disappeared into another dimension. But in the comical episode 36, both Pygmon and Red King got pulled back into our dimension by a crazy scientist, who also accidentally combined Pygmon with Ellie, Dash's android, causing her to act very strange. Pygmon would end up getting sent back to his dimension when Ellie stood in the way of Ultraman Max to protect him from the dimensional weapon. After these 3 appearances in Ultraman Max, Pygmon would begin to appear much more frequently. Time for a speedy history of Pygmon since 2006. Pygmon played a small but important role in Ultra Galaxy Legends the movie. Ultraman Zero saved a Pygmon from a huge falling rock, thus demonstrating to Leo his maturity. Another Pygmon would be rescued by Ultraman Zero in the Ultra Zero Fight miniseries, and ended up becoming a pet of Ultimate Force Zero and nicknamed Moroboshi-kun after Zero's father. No, not Kishimu-kun, Moroboshi-kun. Now sit down. Next, Pygmon was befriended by a girl who had just moved to Tatara City, named after Tatara Island, in Ultraman X. Pygmon tried to warn the people of the city about King Gezra's approach, but ended up temporarily frightening the townsfolk instead. It seemed he would die after sacrificing his body to save a man, but these days Tsuburaya doesn't seem to enjoy killing Pygmon as much. A Pygmon that was much closer to the original design than the Max version appeared in Ultraman Rube, and helped the Dada to set up a thank you party for aliens. But when Dada lashed out at the Ultramen at his party, Pygmon informed the leader of their organization, Booska, who administered a punishment. Several different Pygmon designs appeared in Ultraman Rube the movie. They were being terrorized by a Mecha Gamora, who was defeated by Ultraman Rosso. Later, the Pygmons repaid the favor by bringing Rosso's human form some water. And Pygmon's most recent appearance was in the spin-off Sevenger fight series, where it appeared alongside Garamon for the first time ever. 2 Garamons, actually. Sevenger had to defend the Pygmon from his larger lookalikes in Episode 5. Amusingly, when Pygmon appeared in the same shot as the giant-sized characters, a small Pygmon toy was placed on the ground. Speaking of Pygmon toys, let's touch on those and some other topics real quick. There have been many toys and other merchandise produced of Pygmon by Bandai and others since his original appearance, including even his powered form or his statue form. He's also been in some video games, and appeared in the Japanese game show Takeshi's Castle, as well as in the Kaiju Steps side stories in the Marvel comics. Some Pygmon characters appeared in Ultraman Kids too. There are also a bunch of kaiju based on him and Garamon in the Ultra series, such as the previously mentioned Pigu, as well as Minin, Gamaran, the character named Pygmon from the Ultraman manga, Redmon, Garaku, and Garagon, whose face appears to have been reused for the Ultraman Max Pygmon. And we shouldn't go until we've mentioned some of Pygmon's powers and abilities. The peaceful kaiju doesn't have many, but in Ultraman Max he does seem to be able to transform into a balloon to travel, obviously a reference to his first appearance. And he attempted to attack the alien in episode 36 of that series by swiping at him with his claws, though it was not very effective. He can also communicate with Kaido without speaking, and of course turn himself into a statue. And with that, I have exhausted my supply of Pygmon facts. If you enjoyed this class format, why not watch my History of Mogira video? Or you could just watch my previous video about which Kamen Rider has the most forms. Or, if you only like Ultraman, I've got a video with theories about what Ultra will come after Decker. And like and subscribe while you're at it. And on that note, I'm out of here.